so let's look at what we have here. So this first one, I don't think I can zoom in anymore because I'll cut it off. All right, so a student basically ignores, the decimals and just multiplies these and gets an answer. And they know that they need 3 place values behind the decimal. Why does this work? Okay, so let's think about it. Oh, and I wrote 3 by 2. Sorry. Oh, well, there you go. They don't agree. This should be 34. I apologize. There's a typo there. Okay, so that's a 34. So they basically ignore the decimals and they multiply. And they know there's 3 place values. And think about why. Well, in a sense, they're scaling this up by 100. They're moving the decimal twice. So they're scaling up by 10 and 10 again, or 100 to get 125. Over here, they're scaling this up by 10 to get the 34. And so the answer that they get here is 1,000 times too big, right? I mean, this is definitely going to be 1,000 times bigger than what it should be. So when they're done, they're basically going to have to divide by 10 3 times to compensate for the fact that they multiplied by 10 3 times. And so, or divide by 1,000. So that makes sense then that if they get some whole number here, right, then if you move the decimal 1, 2, 3, okay, so I'm going to divide by 10 3 times, there's going to have to be 3 place values behind the decimal. The other thing you could think about is that 3.4 is really 3 4/10. 1.25 is 1 25 hundredths. So from a decimal point of view, your new unit is going to be thousandths. All right, let's look at the next one. Using a base 10 picture, how many groups? Okay, so how many groups your units match? So in a sense, you could think about money and money, all right? And so I want to know how many groups, not how many in a group, how many groups. So I'm going to draw a picture. All right, and so this is my whole, these are my tenths, and these are my hundredths. And so I'm doing dividing by basically 20 cents, which is dividing basically by longs, 2 longs. But again, I'm not doing how many in a group, I'm doing how many groups. So basically I'm like, like this would pay for one group, this would pay for one group. Let's see, I don't have enough here. So maybe I'm going to ungroup this guy into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And it takes 2 longs to make a group. So there's 1 group, 2 groups, 3 groups, 4 groups, 5 groups. All right, and then here, I don't have enough to make a full group, all right? So I'm just going to let you ponder. I'm going to pause for a second. I want you to ponder, what do I do with that? Like what decimal of a group, or what does that give me there? So I'm going to pause for a second, let you think about that. Okay, hopefully you had some time to ponder what that would be. So think about this. To make a group, are you guys okay? I need 2 longs, because 2 tenths, and 2 tenths would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So there would be 20 singles, right, in every group if I kind of broke these down a little bit. Well, how many singles do I have? I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I have 6/20ths of a group, which is 3/10. And again, since we're doing decimals here, I need to stick with decimals. So this is 0.3 of a group. And again, let me talk again about why. There's 6 singles. It takes 20 singles to make 2 longs. So I have out of 20 that I need, and I'm going to simplify that into just base 10, 3/10. And so that's 0.3. So my answer is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7.3 groups. Okay. All right, let's look at the next one. We're going to take 1.46, or 1 46 hundredths divided by 2 tenths. How many in a group? Now, this time we're going to move the decimal, all right, because we want a whole number of groups. So I'm going to take the first number, put it in the house, and put my 0.2 here. This is how many groups I want. I want to have a whole number of groups, so I'm going to multiply this guy by 10 and this guy by 10. And that compensates, because if you have 1.64 divided by 0.2, if you scale both by 10, you've already compensated. There is nothing to compensate because you made this 10 times bigger and this 10 times bigger. So you're good. All right. And so let's see, using a base 10 picture. Okay. So now I have two groups. All right. And I have, let's see, I'm going to draw the same picture I did before. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. So, and I'll just do long division to the side. You didn't have to do long division, but I'll do it just to show what's going on here. I can't divvy up my flat. So that would be right there. I can't divvy up that flat. That flat is now worth a 10. Is that okay? Because I'm doing this math. So this is worth a 10. These are worth, what are those, 1s, and these are 10s. So I can't divvy that up, right? So I'm going to ungroup that. So I'm going to be lazy here. 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. That's when you're looking at the 14. And if you have 14 in two groups, everybody can get 7. And again, I'd put my 7 up here if I was doing long division, subtract and get my 0. These guys are all gone, right? Because I kind of used them to divvy up. This was an ungrouping. All right, so now, again, you bring down. I have the 6. That's my 6 singles, right? And so I have 6 and I have 2 groups, so everybody can get 3. Okay, so I'm going to kind of divvy those up between those two. Again, I gave everybody 3, so I used up all 6 and 0. Now, your decimal goes straight up. And again, we said at the beginning, these guys were 10s right here after we scaled them up. So these guys are 10s, these guys were 1s, and these guys were 10s. So my answer, these guys are 1s. So what's in the group is 7 1s and 3 10s. And that's what's in a group. All right, let's do down here. Oh, I'm going to pause. Go ahead if you haven't done these already, the book problems, and I'll come back in a second. This one I already gave you the answer, all right? So something similar to this on each of these, and then here. So I'm going to pause, make sure you do these, and then come back and watch. All right, so let's look at these book problems. Okay, so 7A says 58 stretch of road divided into 3 equal parts. So that'd be 58 divided by 3, which that goes in there, what, 19 times, and there would be, what, 1/3 left over. So if I divide, that goes in there 19 times. 1 with 28, which would be 9, is 27, 1 left over. And it says, how many miles of road are in each part? So there are 19 1/3 parts in each, in parts of a mile. Makes sense, right? You can have parts of a mile, right? So, so this one makes sense. All right, let's look at B, a 50-mile of stretch. Each section's a 15-mile be responsible by a different road crew. All right, so again, I'm taking 58 divided by 15 miles. And on this one, having part, you know, you have to have a crew to fix it, right? So I kind of need like four whole road crews. Okay. All right. So in that one, having, you know, probably a part of a road crew doesn't make sense. Okay. And you just can't have something undone, right? So that's an example where you're going to have a whole new crew to kind of do the next one. Having 3 in a part probably is not going to go. Pencils, right? Okay. You know, you can't be unfair, right? You're not going to break a pencil in half, right? So you're going to have some leftovers there. And then you have 7 packs of chips, and you're sharing them fairly. Everybody's really hungry, right? So nobody's like, oh, I'll pass, they're starving. All right. And so since they're starving, you know, you could give everyone 1, but you know what? They're really starving. So probably giving them 3/4 of a pack doesn't make sense. Okay. So you don't want to waste food if you're starving, although I don't know, I could debate whether chips are food or not, but, so you don't want to waste food. So these people are starving. They're like, oh my gosh, there's chips. Let's share them. Everybody gets their own pack, and then they each get 3/4 of a pack because, again, they are starving. So they are definitely going to want to eat them. They're not going to save them for later. All right, let's look at number 20. I think that's on the next section. Okay, so Jessica does 7 divided by thirds. And let's see, she gets, so if I take 7 divided by 3, it goes in there twice. and she gets a remainder of 1, okay? And so then it goes, when she's asked to write her answer as a decimal, she simply does, 2.1, okay? Is Jessica correct or not? Explain why not, or why she is, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so when we do a remainder, the other way we could write that instead is she's in base 3. So if you have the number 7 in base 3, you'd have 2 full groups, right? But you have 1 left over. But again, think of fractions. You have 1 part, and it takes 3 more parts to make a whole again. So she has 2 whole sets of 3 and 1/3 of the next. This does not make sense because decimals are base 10, and over here she's grouping things in sets of 3. She's in base 3, so that does not make sense. So if she wants to convert that into base 10, she has to add a decimal. The remainder does not help her. So then she brings down a 0. She gets 3, which is 9. She brings down a 0. 3, 3, 3, 3, right? Okay, so she's going to really, the correct answer is 2.3 repeating, and that makes sense because 1/3 is 0.3 repeating. But just using the remainder as your decimal does not make sense unless you're dividing by 10, and she's not, right? She's dividing by 3. She's in grouping things by thirds, not by base 10, okay? So that one does not make sense. All right, go ahead and look at the next page and do them on your own and then come back and watch the video. Okay, so if we look at this one, Jose says that they can make 2 2/9 batches. Sorry, Mark says 2.5 batches. All right, so here's the 5 cups of flour that they have, and they need this to make a batch. All right, so I'm going to get a common denominator. So again, it's kind of like 5 ones divided by, this is what, 8 9/4. And so my common denominator is 4. So I'm actually going to cut all of them into 4. So in the book, if you look at their picture, they only cut some of them into 4s. I'm going to cut all of them into 4s. So okay, and I don't need to cut them the other direction because these are already in 4s. All right, so in a sense, what we're saying is these are each 1/4 of a cup, right? 1/4 of a cup, 1/4 of a cup, 1/4 of a cup, 1/4 of a cup, and 1/4 of a cup. And I could label all these if I wanted to with 1/4 of a cup. And so what this is saying is it takes 9 4th cups to be a recipe. So 1, 2, 3, and I could circle these. That would be 1 batch, okay? And then I have, 1, 2, how many are in here? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This is another batch. But notice it takes 9 to make a batch. I only have 1/4 and 1/4 left. That's not enough to make another batch. It takes 9 1/4 of cups to make a batch. So I really only have 2 parts. Do you see them? These 2 1/4 are only 2 parts of the 9 that I need to make a batch. So Mark's error is he's looking at these 2 1/4 and he's like 1/4 and 1/4 make a half. So it's a half. It's a half a cup of flour. That's true. We have half a cup of flour left, but that a half a cup of flour is compared to this guy to make a batch because we're focusing on how much do we need to make a batch. And so the fact that these are 4ths a cup doesn't matter. It takes 9 scoops of 1/4 of a cup. So you scoop 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 to make a batch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 to make a batch. 1, 2, you only have 2 parts of the 9 needed. So when I say you need a new unit, these guys cancel because it takes 9 scoops, of whatever measurement, which in this case is 1/4 of a cups, to make a batch. So this number is how many it takes to make a batch. It takes 9 1/4 cups to make a batch. So again, count 9, that's great. 2 full batches. The 2 that are left over are 2 scoops or 2 1/4 of cups that you need to make a batch, but you need 9 of them. So you have 2 parts out of the 9 needed to make a batch. Mark was looking at that and saying, oh, well, that's just, half of it's shaded. So it's a half. It's a half a cup, right? The half he's focusing on is half a cup, but it's not a fraction of a batch. It's 2 pieces of the 9 that he needs to make a batch. All right, I'm going to end there. Keep working on the last few, and I'll make one more video.